There's movement in Foxborough that doesn't scream, but if you've been following this team closely, you can feel exactly what it means. And that's what today feels like. We've got praise that might be covering strategy, a big name starting to pick up real heat on offense, pick 31 sitting in the middle of multiple possibilities, and one more clue about how this defense could get even nastier. Stick with me and hit that like button because today's conversation is all about behind-the-scenes signals, roster reading, and the Patriots thinking a few steps ahead. What caught my attention most in this first story wasn't even the praise itself. Coaches hype up their roster all the time at the annual NFL meeting. That's normal. That's part of the game. What changes the weight of what Mike Vrabel said is the timing and who the message was aimed at. When he talks up the receiver room, mentions Romeo Doubs, Butte, Pop Douglas, Mac Hollins, Kyle Williams, and sounds genuinely fired up about that group, he's not just protecting the room internally. He may also be helping New England move across a chessboard where every word has value. Because from the outside, a lot of people are already connecting that tone to the A.J. Brown situation, and honestly, that makes sense. If the Patriots show too much desperation for a true elite receiver, the price goes up. If the message is confidence in what they already have, the tone of that conversation changes. That's pure backroom leverage. That's how you avoid walking into a negotiation looking like you need a deal right now. But at the same time, nobody in Foxborough can get too comfortable with this current picture of the offense. Doubs helps. Of course he helps. But he doesn't tilt a defense by himself. A.J. Brown would. That's the kind of player who changes coverage, changes the math in the passing game, and gives Drake Maye a much bigger margin for error when a play breaks down or when a defense tightens up in man coverage. And that's exactly where the offense had issues in the biggest games down the stretch. When the defense on the other side gets better, you need somebody who can flat out win, not just a hard-working, functional group. That's why, even if Brown gets back into the picture in a real way, I still think the draft has to bring another weapon into this offense. And it doesn't have to be in round one. If edge and offensive tackle stay near the top of the priority list, that still makes sense. The sweet spot in this class is alive on day 2 and into early day 3. Daniel Jeremiah talked about a huge pool of receivers who can step in and make an impact early, and that lines up perfectly with what the Patriots need right now. Explosion, separation, real threat, and more pressure on opposing defenses. So to me, Vrabel's comments work on 2 levels. On the surface, he's building confidence in a room that's going to have to compete hard. Underneath that, he may be buying the front office room to act without looking boxed in. And if that read is right, it's a good sign for the fan base. New England isn't sitting there choosing between waiting on Brown or settling for what's already in the building. The plan feels more aggressive than that. Land a big name if the chance is there, and still attack the draft like a team that knows Drake Maye only takes the next step when this offense stops asking for help and starts making defenses nervous. This second story comes in from a totally different angle, because here the question isn't about smoke or leverage. The question is simple, and it's strong. If David Njoku is out there, why wouldn't the Patriots be paying close attention? I like this connection because it's not just about the name, it's about the shape of the offense. Austin Hooper is gone. Julian Hill came in more as a depth piece. Hunter Henry is still a valuable pro, but there is still obvious room for more impact at this position. And when the team's own analysis showed the offense was productive throwing out of multiple tight end sets but didn't have the same success running the ball out of those packages, that tells you something. This isn't just about numbers. It's about profile, force, aggression, and the kind of presence that makes a defense respond differently. Njoku gives you exactly that kind of problem. Even with the recent durability concerns, he's still a tight end who attacks the middle of the field, stresses the seam, and shows up in the red zone with size, burst, and power. For a young quarterback like Drake Maye, that matters a lot. Because not every form of help comes in the shape of a number 1 wide receiver. Sometimes the fastest way to speed up an offense is giving your quarterback a target who can absorb contact, widen the throwing window, and turn 2nd and 7 into a live play. And there's one detail I really keep coming back to with this possible New England fit. Vrabel and this new setup don't feel like they're building a roster just to plug holes. What it feels like is a search for pieces that give the offense a different identity. Njoku would do that. He wouldn't be coming in just to fill out a rotation. He would change the conversation around the ceiling of this group. Because with Henry on one side and Njoku on the other, defenses can't look at this offense as predictable or light anymore. The structure changes. Play action looks different. The middle of the field becomes tougher to cover, and Drake gets more than one reliable answer when the play calls for a quick decision. That's why the buzz keeps building. Cleveland has already moved into a new phase, and New England still feels like one of those teams that's one or two additions away from turning a good off-season into a dangerous one. This move wouldn't fix everything by itself, but it is exactly the kind of move that makes the fan base feel like this offense isn't being built just to survive. It's being built to hit defenses where it hurts. This third story hits the part of the fan base that lives for the draft, because pick 31 might be a whole lot less locked in than people think. And to me, this is the kind of behind-the-scenes rumor that matters not because of the headline alone, but because of what it says about how much freedom New England may have on draft night. Over the last few months, there's been a lot of talk about using that pick in a deal for A.J. Brown. That alone would put the Patriots in the middle of a move that could change the offense right away. But the latest projection from CBS, with Jordan Dajani mocking New England trading down with the Rams, opens up a different read that's also really interesting. If Los Angeles wants to move up to lock in Ty Simpson, and the Patriots can turn 31 into extra second and third round capital, maybe even pull something into next year too, the whole picture changes fast. And it changes because this roster is still at the point where smart volume matters. This isn't only about landing a flashy move. It's about increasing the number of swings you get in a range of the draft where this class can deliver real help. If the front office sees the board from the end of round 1 into the middle of round 2 and doesn't view the gap at certain positions as dramatic, then sliding back a little and stacking extra ammunition stops looking conservative and starts looking sharp. What's most interesting is that both paths tell the same story about where this franchise is right now. If pick 31 becomes the price for a proven veteran, the Patriots are showing they want to speed up Drake Maye's development with somebody ready-made. If pick 31 turns into a trade-down package, the message is still strong, because then the team would be betting on depth, flexibility, and more chances to build out a stronger young core. In either case, what disappears is the idea of passivity, and honestly, that's what fires me up. Because when a team starts getting connected to moving up, moving down, or going after established talent, it tells you they entered the draft with a real plan, not just a list of names. The front office is reading value, cost, and timing all at once. And that is exactly the feeling I want coming out of Foxborough right now. Pick 31 might still be used where it sits, sure, but today, it's hard for me to look at this situation and picture New England tied to just one path. These Patriots feel a lot more willing to move the board than just sit there and wait for their turn. This fourth story has a different feel to it. It's not coming through the front door with star power or the kind of name that dominates national shows, but this type of prospect usually tells you a lot about how a staff sees roster building. And that's exactly why I think Kaleb Proctor is a much more interesting name than it might look at first glance. On paper, the Patriots' interior defensive line already commands respect. Milton Williams and Christian Barmore are a serious duo with size, burst, and physical presence that not many teams can match. But a long season doesn't hold up on two strong starters alone. And after Khyiris Tonga left, the depth in that interior lost a specific kind of body, resistance, and role. That's where it starts to make sense why a player like Proctor could end up on the radar. He comes out of southeastern Louisiana, far from the shine of the giant programs, but his resume absolutely stands out. He was extremely productive, created quarterback pressure, piled up tackles for loss, sacks, showed a relentless motor, showed athletic ability, and then backed it up at the combine with numbers that pop for a player in that size range. And that matters because New England isn't just looking for size, it's looking for usefulness. It's looking for somebody who can absorb contact but also beat blocks, chase plays down, and bring real energy into a rotation. And I really like his path. He was a linebacker in high school, didn't come in with major recruiting status, stayed at the same program for 4 years, even when bigger doors started opening later. That says development. That says hunger. That says a player who was willing to build his own path the hard way. On a team trying to get its competitive identity fully back, that kind of background can matter inside the building. Not as some romantic story, as a real profile read. The Patriots have always valued players who understand their role, buy into the work, and grow through detail. Now, yes, there's a real debate here. The defense already has quality pieces inside, so does it make sense to spend draft capital there? I think it does, depending on where the board takes you, because defensive line depth is not a luxury. That's what keeps aggression alive in November and December. That's what keeps the unit from falling off a cliff when somebody loses snaps, feels the wear and tear, or just needs to breathe. And if the team wants a nastier rotation, more violent at first contact and better at collapsing the pocket from the middle, Proctor makes a lot of sense as a bet. I'm not talking about a player who's going to dominate TV debate the next day. I'm talking about one of those moves where months later the fan base looks back and says, "Now I get why they were on this so early." And I want to hear from you. If the front office gets the chance to reinforce the interior defensive line in the draft, would you rather see them go after a heavier profile to replace what left with Tonga, or go after more burst and interior pressure the way this kind of player might bring? At the end of the day, what these four stories leave in the air is a very specific feeling. The Patriots are not moving through this offseason on autopilot. There's market awareness, there's real attention being paid to Drake Maye's support system, there's true flexibility heading into the draft, and there's a search for depth in places a lot of people barely notice. To me, that's the sign of a franchise